Welcome everybody to another pure variant deck build. This is Mathmech and this has been with me for a very long time. I used to run this with Tyler about 3 years ago at the time of this recording, and it was really good. It was an OTK machine with Final Sigma, but it felt a bit dry. It felt a bit lackluster. It was a one-trick pony. It didn't easily go into any of the others, and it felt a bit janky a lot of the time, if I'm being honest. But the revisions I have given this deck with the addition of the new card circular, this deck is completely different. The way I play it is completely different, and it feels more of a toolbox now. And the OTK aspect of Final Sigma isn't always the go-to. There's actually another go-to that I much prefer in this new build of Mathmech. I actually don't know if I've done a Mathmech build on the channel. So this actually might be a first because I'm immensely happy with where this is at. I tend not to put pure variant deck builds up unless I'm very, very happy with them. But like I said, this is a pure variant. There's no hand traps in here. There are only Mathmech monsters in here. So you're not going to see anything that's going to make you win a YCS or maybe even locals for that matter. But the casual competitive environments that Tyler and I play, if you guys are familiar with that format, it's immensely fun. This brings out the most of what Mathmech should represent. So without me rambling further, let's get into the main deck because this is where the excitement is. As you guys can see, Mathmech Circular is the one on top. This is absolutely the best play starter in the deck. Mathmech haven't got support in quite a while, but they got one random card in Circular, which single-handedly has changed the way this deck is played. You can send a Mathmech card from your deck to graveyard to special summon this card, and then when a Mathmech monster is special summoned to the field, you can search a Mathmech spell or trap. This, being a Foolish Burial and a search, is immensely powerful. The card that it's going to search is one of our trap cards, which I'll get to at the when we get to the trap section. But this is immensely good. It special summons from the hand. It Foolish Burials one of the best cards in the deck, and I'll show you right now. It's generally going to Foolish Burial Mathmech Final Sigma. Final Sigma can special summon itself from the grave to the field if we don't control a monster in the extra monster zone. So we activate this, send the Final Sigma. Final Sigma can then go to the graveyard and special summon itself. All of a sudden, we've got two level 4s or a tuner and a non-tuner, and then we could start making plays from there. But it generally doesn't stop there because Mathmech have the opportunity to do so much, which is why I love it. They can play through so many interruptions with cards like Sigma, with cards like Circular, and we're only 2 monsters deep. So Sigma is definitely a 3 of as well. It's an immensely powerful card. We run 3 copies of Mathmech Edition. It's a free special summon. Target a monster, give it 1,000 attack, special summon it. Just the ability to be able to do that for essentially no cost is immensely powerful. I love Edition, run it at 3. Subtraction is the opposite, just as good. Monster loses 1,000 attack, special summon it from the hand. It's just as good. And these cards, with cards like Addition and Subtraction, it allows us to play through interruptions because we don't have to target our monsters. We can target our opponents if we're going second. Very, very powerful card, very consistent card. Allows us to go into our Final Sigma and into our Magma, and I'll show you the extra deck shortly. 3 copies of Nabla. Nabla does 2 things that's very important. A, it's a tuner, so it allows us to go into our synchro plays. But B, it contribute a monster we control to special summon a Mathmech from the deck. So if we're wanting to go into particular monsters, say we don't open the Sigma or we don't open the Circular, and we can't send the Sigma to grave, we can distribute something or itself and special summon it from the deck. So this is, more than anything, a consistency piece. This is essentially any Mathmech monster you want it to be, and I think that's what makes Nabla so absolutely powerful in a deck like this. I run 3 copies of Mathmech Diameter. Mathmech Diameter does 2 things very well. I don't think it's absolutely fantastic, especially when comparing it to Circular, because this is the 1 card support that we got post, the initial wave of support for Mathmech. This is the one that came out before Circular. It is okay, it's a tuner, which is always good. But if it is normal summoned, we can special summon a Mathmech from the grave, which is very good because then all of a sudden it's an automatic Xyz or Synchro, depending on what we need. It's a play extender and starter, which is absolutely great. But it does an interesting thing where if it's used as Xyz material or Synchro material, it gives that monster an effect where they have one Omni Negate for that turn. So it saves us from a hand trap, or if we're going and using this as material in our opponent's turn, it gives whatever we're summoning from the extra deck an Omni Negate in our opponent's turn, which is always amazing. So I used to run this at 1 with the addition of Circular. Like I said, that card has single-handedly changed the way I play this because now I'm go first over go second. Diameter is a play starter, play extender, and in our opponent's turn, if we get this out to use as material, it's an Omni Negate. So very, very powerful. I absolutely love Diameter. 1 copy of Multiplication. Multiplication is good for 2 reasons. 1, it can make itself level 8 or another monster level 8. So this and 1 other tuner can instantly go into Final Sigma, which is very, very powerful. The other thing that it does quite good is if it's sent to the graveyard, we can target a monster in MA monster zone and double its attack. So our Final Sigma would then go to 6,000 attack, and that could very easily swing for games. So if we use Multiplication and Diameter as material in our opponent's turn and they go to grave, if we're doing a Synchro summon, this can, double the attack, and this can give it an Omni Negate. So these two are very good. The reason I only run Multiplication at 1 is because I don't generally care to see it in the opening hand. I can special summon it from grave. I can cheat it out from the deck with Nabla. And I can always, get to it when I need to. So I don't think you need to run this at 1, especially if you're running multiple Diameter. You can just pitch this to the grave. There are multiple ways to do it. Normal summon this, special summon it. There you go. Multiplication, very good card, but I only run it at 1. Last monster for the main deck is Balancelord. Balancelord is very good for this deck. It kind of feels like a pseudo Mathmech. It kind of has the same aesthetic as well, which is neat. But it just gives us an additional normal summon of level 4 Cyberse. So that's literally every monster I've shown you so far is a level 4 Cyberse. All the Mathmech main deck monsters are. So just get this out, normal summon another. And the beautiful thing as to why this works well, it's a normal summon, so it works well with Diameter, because Diameter's effect to special summon from the grave only procs off a normal summon. So Balancelord is just phenomenal in that way. It's just an additional Mathmech monster. It's level 4, it's a Cyberse. It fits the theme very, very well. So definitely run Balancelord at 3 if you want consistency in the deck. Speaking of consistency, we have Cyanate Mining. This is a staple for almost all Cyberse decks. Discard 1, search a level 4 or lower Cyberse. Like I said, every single monster in the main deck is a level 4 Cyberse, so this will search us the card that we want to get to. We'll generally always be pitching Sigma if we open Sigma and Cyanate Mining, because Sigma, like I said, can special summon itself from the grave. So Cyanate Mining is a 3 of. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't run it at 3. I run 3 copies of OneTime Passcode. It just special summons a level 4 Cyberse token in defense mode. We just use it for synchro summons. Can't use it for XCs. Obviously, you can't use tokens for XC summons. But, if we don't have the necessary cards in hand, we can just summon a level 4 token and go into the synchro that we need. I think it adds consistency, and, if we can... Generally, if you can use tokens without it hindering you too much, like Scapegoat, for example, means you can't special summon monsters the turn you use that effect. This doesn't hinder us. We can only use 1 per turn. So OneTime Passcode is a very powerful card in a deck like this where everything's level 4. We only use level 4s, and this doesn't have a negative drawback. So very, very good card in this deck. 3 copies of Mathematic Equation. This is just a monster reborn from our graveyard for a Mathmech monster. It does give it 1,000 additional attack to the end of the turn, but we don't care for it. It's just an extender. If we are going second, for example, and we're needing to play through interruptions and our opponent keeps destroying the monsters on the board so we can't XCs or whatever, this just gives us another way to play through those interruptions. Or it's an extender. If we need additional monsters on board and we're going first, this definitely helps. That's all it is. It's an in-archetype searchable monster reborn, which is never a bad thing. Which, of course, we run 1 monster reborn as well. There's self-explanatory, Monster Reborn is just a very good card in this deck. One Foolish Burial. The reason I like Foolish Burial because it has multiple applications within the Mathmech archetype. So it does send the Sigma to grave if we want to special summon it from grave if we don't have a monster in the extra monster zone. So it's good in that regard. It's almost like just being able to special summon Sigma from the deck, which if you can special summon from the deck, it's very powerful. So this is kind of pseudo that. But it also does things like if we send the multiplication from deck to graveyard, we can target our final Sigma with multiplication and double its attack. So going second, Foolish Burial is, like I said, can have multiple applications depending on what we want. So I like it. It's limited at 1, and I think you only need to run 1. So I think it's a good card. Call by the Grave. If we're going first, we don't want to get hand trapped. In the format that Tyler and I play, there's not too many hand traps, but there are in-archetype hand traps. Like Rika just got one, for example. It doesn't go to grave, but if, things in the same vein, if they discard them to go to grave, we don't want to, have to play through interruptions if we don't want to. Or if we're going first, we can set it and use it as a trap to get rid of something. So very, very powerful card, self-explanatory. 2 copies of Twin Twisters. Back row heavy decks, especially in this format, are always going to be powerful. And when I say this format, I mean like casually competitive, where Altergeist are quite powerful, and that people like Tyler and I play a lot of Solemns, for example, and in-arc type traps. So they're always fun to get rid of when necessary. And if we're made to go second, Twin Twisters is an exceptionally powerful card to open. So you can drop these out for, maybe hand traps if you want to run more hand traps, but I like running the Twin Twisters. Now for the traps. Super Factorial. This card, in conjunction with Circular, these have changed the way I play the deck. So it used to be going to Final Sigma, try and swing for OTK going second, but we didn't have too many ways to play through Interruption. Circular allows that. It's additional special summon and it searches. This, if we don't open Factorial, this is always going to search Super Factorial. For those that don't know, Super Factorial is essentially just a Tri-Brigade Revolt for the Mathmech archetype. It allows us to special summon up to 3 from our graveyard and then immediately Xyz summon or Synchro summon a Mathmech monster from the extra deck. So this will search it, adds immense consistency, but this card is absolutely insane, and I'll tell you why shortly. The last card is Induction. It's usually a pop. If we control one, just send it to the grave and get a pop. So if we're going first, this actually comes up. In the OTK version where we're going second, this is useless, but going first, this is actually quite good. Especially if we open Super Factorial and we don't need extenders, searching an additional pop is always a good thing. But I will show you why this card is so important in this archetype with Circular being able to search it. For the extra deck, I'm just running playsets of Final Sigma, Mathmech Magma, Laplation, and Alembertian. These are all the monsters in the archetype. This will do double damage unaffected by other card effects except Mathmech, so it's very, very powerful. If this destroys a card on the field, or a monster on the field, it can destroy 2 cards on the field, so it's removal. Alembertian is a searcher, so just get 2 out, search the Mathmech card you need. Very, very consistent. Laplation is the key to going first. So, on trigger, when this is summoned, it requires 3 level 4 monsters, which is just Mathmech monsters or Balancelord. But it does things. We can detach up to 3, then apply 3 effects if we detach 3. Send 1 monster our opponent controls to the graveyard. Send 1 spell and trap our opponent controls to the graveyard. And send a random card from our opponent's hand to the graveyard. It's kind of like Trishula, but sending is just as powerful as banishing, because it doesn't activate destruction effects. This is insane going first. If we can summon this out going first, milling a card from our opponent's hand is exceptional. It's very, very good. But Super Factorial allows us to get out in our opponent's turn. Like I said, it's essentially just a Tri-Brigade Revolt that can be searched with Circular. So this will allow us to summon this during our opponent's turn. So if we wait until they have, a spell or trap on the field, or definitely a monster on the field, we can at least send the monster to the grave and make them mill a card from their hand to the grave. So this going into this is always the combo you want to do. Now, the reason why this is always, not always, but can be a bit spicy, Circular obviously searches this, okay? But the cards we want to special summon with Super Factorial, obviously you can choose whatever you want, but Diameter is always a great choice, and multiplication is a great choice. Like I said, multiplication will double the attack of a monster in the extra monster zone. Generally, it's going to be Final Sigma, not Laplation, because this only gets protection if it's in the extra monster zone. But Diameter is the key to summoning and using a material with Superfactorial. Because if we use Superfactorial and Special Summon Diameter as one of the 3 monsters and go into Laplation, not only is Laplation giving us, sending 2 cards on the field to the graveyard and making them discard a card, it's also giving this an Omni Negate for the turn. So all of a sudden, Laplation completely shuts our opponents down and making them play with reduced resources and a negate. Very, very powerful, but this is how the deck has changed. It's not just running it through Final Sigma and going second, hoping to OTK. We can go first. We can summon this during our opponent's turn consistently. I've never not been able to summon this during my opponent's turn. It's very, very good. We've got our Searcher. We've got our card which can pop cards on the field. We've got our Towers that can also swing for game at any point almost. I love this archetype. This archetype does so much consistently now, and it's more of a toolbox than ever before. This is an immensely fun deck to play, and I urge you guys to play Mathmech, especially Pure, because it definitely stands out when you run it Pure. There aren't many decks that can be as consistent and feel as complete as this archetype. There is nothing else I need to add to this deck. I feel like it's fine in a casually pure competitive environment. I love it. But if you guys have anything that I can add to the main deck, I don't think there is. I feel like this deck is complete, which is why I'm so happy to share it with you guys. But with the toolbox that we have in the extra deck, with the consistency pieces, with the searches, with the ability to play through multiple interruptions. I think when I was versing Tyler, I played through 4 interruptions and still got Laplation on board and went into Final Sigma twice. This deck is insane with how much it can do, and I think it's come back as a very competitive for a casual format. It's immensely fun. I've said it time and time again, and I think it's because I love this deck. I'm never going to move off of this deck, and I'm super happy it got the support in Circular. That card single-handedly changed the way I built and play this deck currently. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys would like to see any variations or any other decks, definitely let us know. We've got quite a few decks in the works and deck builds coming up, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace.